of the Gambia Federation for the Disabled, distinguished invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all to this two-day conference on the theme Advancing the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in the Gambia. Thank you for taking time to honor our invitation to dialogue on this very important and pertinent issue. I will now call on the Honorable Chairperson.
Good morning, everyone. The Permanent Secretary, Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, who's representing the Minister, Honorable Fatou Kinte, Madam Serafina Wakana, the UN Resident Coordinator, His Worship Mohamed Krubali, the Chairperson of the Gambia Federation for the Disabled, representative of different institutions and organizations present, commissioners and staff of the NHRC, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to this two-day forum on the theme, Advancing the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in the Gambia. This forum is geared towards having a dialogue with state and non-state actors. And we have with us stakeholders from various ministries, departments and agencies, and the private sector to address issues concerning persons living with disabilities, to discuss the challenges faced by persons living with disabilities, and to proffer concrete recommendations and strategies that could be implemented to fulfill the rights of persons living with disabilities. But most importantly, to promote the acceleration of the implementation of the Persons with Disability Act 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, the Brogan Project, which is a non-profit organization that addresses poverty and hunger and is working towards eradicating them, in their publication dated September 19th, 2023, which is titled Disability Rights in the Gambia, A Way Forward. This report stated that 7.9% of the population, or just over 208,000 people in the Gambia, suffer from some kind of disability or condition that makes everyday life, work, and interaction with society difficult. The study further states that the unemployment rate disproportionately affects disabled persons as well, especially young people. It stated that 68% of disabled Gambians between the ages of 15 and 24 are unemployed. And half of disabled Gambians are also not in education or have access to training. Ladies and gentlemen, without proper education or career prospects, people living with disabilities in the Gambia are unlikely to fully integrate into society or earn good wages, and thus putting them at further risk of exclusion and poverty. It is proven that people living with disabilities have been subjected to discrimination at homes, in schools, in offices, thereby affecting their right to education and employment. Despite the guarantees in our 1997 Constitution, the blanket provision on non-discrimination, Section 30, which says that, Section 33, which says that all persons shall be equal before the law, and to be more precise, Section 31, which guarantees the right of the disabled and handicapped to respect and human dignity. This Section 31 of the Constitution, subsection 2, also says that disabled persons shall be entitled to protection against exploitation and to protection against discrimination, in particular as it regards to access to health, education, and employment. It also states that in any judicial proceedings in which a disabled person is a party, the procedure shall take his or her condition into account. The Gambia also, as you know, has ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the optional protocol on the 7th of July 2015. But despite all these aforementioned provisions, people with disabilities continue to face numerous barriers to fully realize their basic fundamental rights and for their full inclusion and participation in the life of their communities and in the Gambia. In August 2021, the most important piece of legislation affecting people with disability was enacted into law. And this happened after a decade since the bill actually was drafted. It was a long, drawn-out advocacy. The Persons with Disability Act 2021 provides essential healthcare and social services for disabled people in the Gambia. And it was greatly welcomed by the Gambia Federation of the Disabled, whose chairperson, who is present with us here today, at the time praised the bill, and if I may paraphrase, for allowing disabled Gambians to hold the government accountable where previously they had neglected the disabled community. The rights, the provisions of the right of disabled in this act, the provisions of the act include the right to education, the right to health care and health services, social support, the right to transportation, particularly those on wheelchairs, rehabilitation, vocational training, employment. The Act also makes provision for all public buildings that will be constructed after the passage of the Act to be disability friendly and to be fitted with ramps that can ease the movements of persons with disabilities, to provide easy access to buildings, public transport, roads, and streets. There are some very other important provisions regarding to access to information and communication, such as physical and sign language interpretation for the deaf and hard of hearing, and for the visually impaired, access to audio tapes, braille, light print, low vision facilities, computerized information, and programs as well. Ladies and gentlemen, although this progressive act has been passed into law, and while we recognize the fact that the government has established the Advisory Committee for Persons with Disabilities, the act still does not have a commencement date, and as a result, its provisions have not been implemented since it received the presidential assent. We hope that the two-day forum will not only raise the awareness of the provisions of the Act, but that it will also assist in accelerating the implementation and enforcement of the Persons with Disability Act 2021 by the state. And we urge the Ministry of Gender to spearhead the process by impressing on the government to have a commencement date for the Act so that the Act can come into force. I thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Permanent Secretary Sekou Sanyang, representing the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare, all government officials here present, the National Human Rights Commission Chair, Mr. Emmanuel Diouf, and commissioners and staff of the National Human Rights Commission, the Gambia Federation of Disabled Chair, His Worship Muhammad Krubali, and all organizations of persons with disabilities, and all persons with disabilities, visible and non-visible. CSOs, private sector partners, and members of the media, my UN colleagues, including head of agencies, all protocols are observed. I'm happy to be here today as we witness again another event with the National Human Rights Commission. The Gambia continues to undertake necessary reforms towards the promotion and protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. In 2015, the Gambia ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the CRPD. And in 2021, the Gambia subsequently domesticated this convention by enacting the Disabilities Act in July 2021. The Gambian's Green Focus National Development Plan has a pillar dedicated to empowerment, social inclusion, and leaving no one behind, and persons with disabilities are one of the groups cited under the pillar. These actions signal positive trajectory towards fulfilling state obligations toward the protection of the rights of persons with disabilities. Ladies and gentlemen, despite this, we are aware that persons with disabilities continue to face stigma and discrimination and exclusion, resulting in non-enjoyment of their rights with adverse effects on their overall well-being and potential. Just last week, the UN, together with the Ministry of Gender, Ministry of Justice, and the National Human Rights Commission and other partners held a dialogue on leveraging the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to reduce inequalities. And persons with disabilities were part of this dialogue, and they highlighted challenges they continue to face. Furthermore, recommendations from that dialogue included those directly related to persons with disabilities, such as increased sensitization and advocacy on their rights and ensuring reasonable accommodations to enable them to participate meaningfully. Ladies and gentlemen, the UN is cognizant of the challenges faced by persons with disabilities. We recognize the government's effort and continue to provide relevant support, including raising awareness and recognition of disability as a human rights issue, as enshrined in the CRPD and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which we celebrate this year, the 75th anniversary. The UN Gambia new Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework has outcomes that ensure vulnerable groups benefit from support with specific mention of persons with disabilities to make them resilient to climate-related and other shocks, and have access to sustainable food, health, and wash systems. We also have a project on advancing the rights of persons with disabilities, particularly women and children with disabilities in the Gambia, jointly implemented by UNICEF and UNFPA. And furthermore, the UN has a disability inclusion strategy that provides the foundation for sustainable and transformative progress on disability inclusion through all pillars of the work of the United Nations. The UN in the Gambia takes the relevant steps to ensure it adheres to the principles of the strategy through a dedicated interagency disability thematic group. We continue to applaud the National Human Rights Commission for taking the necessary steps to create awareness, advocate for and promoting the rights of persons with disabilities. We will continue to be your partner in this venture. I commend the government for raising to the occasion and fulfilling their obligations as duty bearers. And the UN affirms its commitment towards supporting your efforts in protecting the rights of persons with disabilities, and particularly ensuring the achievement of the SDGs that speak toward reducing inequalities. Finally, I speak directly to the GFD and all OPDS. I applaud your tenacity in claiming your rights and reminding us every day that you have the right to be heard, to participate meaningfully, and to be protected. The UN stands firm with you and is committed towards supporting you. I thank each one of you present today, the CSOs, the partners, private sector. Your presence is testament of our collaborative efforts toward leaving no one behind. Let us together use this opportunity to take stock of where we are and how we want to proceed in terms of ensuring the full realization and enjoyment of rights of persons with disabilities in the Gambia. And I wish you all fruitful discussions, and thank you for your kind attention.
The presence of the Permanent Secretary, ably representing the Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare. I equally recognize the presence of the Chairperson of National Human Rights Commission, recognizing the presence of UN Residence Coordinator, commissioners from the National Human Rights Institution, the media, the stakeholder, in particular, the fellow persons with disabilities and other protocols duly observed. The theme is advancing the rights of persons with disabilities. It is inevitable that persons with disabilities are rights holders, whilst the government is the duty bearer. So this is indeed a very remarkable and memorable day for the National Human Rights Commission to call for such important national conference addressing challenging human rights or challenging rights of persons with disabilities. We can recall that the Gambia is indeed a signatory to conventions and core human rights treaties. But before I bring them into light, I always love to share the principles of persons with disabilities, which are indeed not negotiable and those not to be compromised with. And the principles are found in Article 3 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which are respect for diversity, individual autonomy, including freedom to make one's own choice and independence of persons with disabilities, non-discrimination, accessibility, full and effective participation of persons with disabilities, respect for acceptance and difference of persons with disabilities, equality between men and women, respecting the evolving capacity of children in order to preserve their identity, including the rights of children with disabilities, equalities of opportunities. These are the core principles of persons with disabilities. And as I have earlier alluded, that the Gambia haven't signed and ratified the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and its optional protocol. The first paragraph of the said convention restates that recognizing the principles proclaimed in the Charter of the United Nations, which recognize the inherent dignity and worth and the equal and the inalienable rights of all the members of human family as the foundation of justice, freedom, and peace in the world. Paragraph 2 of the convention restates that recognizing that the United Nations in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and in the International Covenant on Human Rights has agreed and proclaimed that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth therein without distinction of any kind. These powerful statements indeed militate discrimination against persons with disabilities and makes clarion call for respect, promotion, and protection of the fundamental rights of persons with disabilities. The chair of the National Human Rights Commission has said and made reference to even Section 33 of our Supreme Constitution, which prohibits or forbids discrimination against Gambian citizens. And of course, by extension, persons with disabilities form the integral part of Gambian citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, Gambia Federation of the Disabled, being the umbrella body representing over 300,000 persons with disabilities in the Gambia, continues to partner for the rights of persons with disabilities, and that these are fundamental human rights that we must understand, that we must respect, and that we must implement.
And staff, President of the Gambia Federation of the Disabled, His Worship Mohamed Krubali, representatives from various institutions, from the civil society to NGOs here present, senior government functionaries from the ministries of justice and all other ministries, as well as all other government stakeholders present here, the media, security personnel, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. It is with honor for me to deliver the keynote address in the opening session of the National Forum on Disabilities on behalf of the Honorable Minister for Gender, Children and Social Welfare, Honorable Fatu Kinte, who is unavoidably not with us due to other official engagements. The theme for this forum, Advancing the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in the Gambia, could not have come at a better time than now. Chairperson, the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Welfare is in close consultation, collaboration and relation with the Gambia Federation of the Disabled. This is the umbrella body for all forms of disability in the country. Equally, relations with non-governmental organizations, NGOs, civil society organizations, and the newly established National Disability Advisory Committees, pending approval from the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs for the next upcoming budget session for 2024 and beyond. Despite these achievements, the Ministry is aware of the numerous challenges persons with disabilities continue to face in the country, which continues to hinder their ability to realize their full potentials. This includes discriminations of all sorts, violations of rights, and limited inclusions, among other things. These challenges cannot be addressed in isolation, but requires a whole of government and society to overcome them by coming together as one force. Ladies and gentlemen, to conclude, as a government, we have set our sights high with a clear aim to empower and promote the social, economic, political inclusion of all persons, including persons with disabilities. The United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the outcome of the General Assembly High-Level Meeting on Disability and Development both emphasize the important role of persons with disabilities in all aspects of society and development, respecting their rights and their dignity. We must therefore recognize that persons with disabilities are effective agents of change whose contributions bring enormous benefits to society. As we move forward, we need to strengthen development policies and practice to ensure that empowerment of persons with disabilities is a part of inclusive and sustainable development. Development taking care of the needs of today's generation without necessarily impinging on generations yet unborn. We also need to account for persons with invisible disabilities, whose needs and voices are often left unconsidered and unheard. The government of the Gambia, in partnership with development partners, state parties, civil society organizations, and all other relevant authorities, would continue to promote policies and create the enabling environment for persons with disabilities, for now and for posterity. Thus, I wish all of you successful two-day forum and thank you for your kind attention.